So this was the big news that has transpired since yesterday. We all saw what happened in that 30-minute press conference, and well, Trump said Carney was going to leave D.C. happy. We don't know what that meant. We are still waiting to see. And he returned, and CTV posted this for this morning, that Carney is set to return to Ottawa without a deal to end the U.S. tariffs. And well, bedlam ensued on social media saying, whoa, Mark Carney sucks. He's the worst. He stinks. And well, we are on this show going to try to have a more nuanced approach and more calculated understanding of what's going on and what's happening and what has transpired since. And I'm looking forward to get into it with you right now, because there is a lot that's happened behind the scenes since he's returned. Conversations have been had, and yeah, we may not be close to a deal. However, other things that are happening are starting to move that I'm like, we'll see where this goes. We'll see where this goes. But welcome to the Elevate Podcast. I'm your host, Josh. If you're getting value from today's episode, take the time to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us to grow. It helps us to get to new audiences and helps people see that there's something different than what the mainstream media has to offer. And now let's get into our first story, shall we? Carney set to return to Ottawa without a deal to end the U.S. tariffs. U.S. President Donald Trump lavished praise on Carney during a meeting in the Oval Office on Tuesday and said the Prime Minister would walk away very happy. He'll walk away very happy, very happy. The president showed no signs of relenting on tariffs, however, and no deal was announced. Carney was scheduled to have a working breakfast this morning with Joshua Bolten, President and CEO of the Business Roundtable, while Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand was set to meet with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc will be staying behind in Washington all by his lonesome. LeBlanc told reporters at a press conference Tuesday that substantial progress was made in the White House talks this week. And that's what I always found interesting. I'm still like, it is fascinating. Politics are interesting, aren't they? So all of that did transpire. Mark Carney also went to a dinner with J.D. Vance last night as well to talk more about all these things. And we'll see what comes of it. Getting some time with the VP is, it's a fascinating situation. Don't really know what's going to be coming of it. However, this is the rhetoric we are being run with. This is the rhetoric that's being pushed. That, well, yeah, we had all that bluster and all that great conversation and, Carney laughing and sitting in his chair, like a little Taylor Swift fangirl. Yeah, I jest. It's fun. But still no results, at least tangible results that we're seeing. A lot of people are kind of being left feeling, what is happening? And even CTV ran this 3-minute piece wondering what's going on.
So it is going to be a question period to watch because as we covered leading into this meeting, there was big pressure from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre on Mark Carney to make good on his election promise of getting a deal with Donald Trump. This is now his second visit in D.C. and he's coming back relatively, as far as we know, at this juncture, actually empty-handed. We did get some indication yesterday that there is hope still that there will be sectoral deals coming forward, but certainly it's going to be a tough grilling for Prime Minister Mark Carney about what came from this meeting. Perhaps that's where we will learn some more details of his late evening conversation with VP Vance, because at this point, Mark Carney has not taken reporters' questions. So we don't have too much beyond what Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc said yesterday to sink our teeth into in terms of what came from this meeting.
So with no deal at the moment, what can the Prime Minister say about these talks with the President?
Yeah, so I think two main things really stood out to me from their Oval Office conversation yesterday that I think Canadians should kind of digest and understand. While we don't have a full deal, I think there was two key things that Canadians should kind of be aware of that came from this. One, U.S. President Donald Trump was asked, would there be some sort of baseline across-the-board tariff on Canadian goods even after CUSMA, the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Free Trade Agreement, was negotiated? Trump indicated that there will still always be some form of tariff on Canada. So worth keeping in mind that we are probably not going to negotiate a situation where we are tariff-free. And then secondly, Prime Minister Mark Carney indicated that over the next 5 years, if Canada gets the deal that they want, Canada could be investing $1 trillion in the United States over the next 5 years. So really curious to kind of parse out and figure out what exactly Mark Carney has put on the table there, what kind of investment in the U.S. that would mean. So I think those are some of the issues and areas that the Prime Minister can chat more about in the absence of a deal to discuss.
So that was kind of the breakdown of what has transpired and what's going on. Trump made it very, very loud and very clear that tariffs will always be a part of our relationship. This is how it's going to go. But the thing that he mentioned yesterday was when it came to softwood lumber, steel, and these impactful industries, and that both of our countries share, that when you're both competing in the same markets, well, there's going to be some give and take. And that's kind of what we're going to be looking for. I think tariffs will be a part of it to some degree. We'll have a deal. I'll take a little bit of this. I'll give you a little bit of that. That's kind of the vibe that Donald Trump is giving Mark Carney and us as Canadians. It's just going to look a little different. And so it is fascinating because I had some time to finally, as I promised yesterday, have some time to really think through kind of what this meeting was really about and what's been happening. And that's what I've come to understand. Is this, we know that Mark Carney's the green zealot. We know his book. We know everything he's written about, that everything should be going green. We need to have a green future, even though all the banks and countries are pulling out of his big green initiative. And that was looking a little rough for the boy. But now Donald Trump is now forcing Mark Carney's hand. This is the thing that, regular Canadians who don't totally follow politics are seeing kind of like, yeah, what Mark Carney is doing, it makes sense to a degree. But when people who are following Mark Carney and his past life and what led him into Canadian politics knows that anything that has anything to do with LNG, oil, conventional energy, he despises, hates, wants it gone. That's how Mark Carney explains it in his book, Values, at least. So what is going to happen with this give and take with steel and this, that, the other? Well, it turns out there was a significant conversation that happened last night. A conversation that was actually really encouraging for us as Canadians, that I'm like, oh, great for us, great for us as a country, great for Alberta. Interesting for Carney. I'll be honest, knowing his history, interesting for him. Coming from the Toronto Star, insider says Mark Carney and Donald Trump discussed reviving the Keystone Oil Pipeline. Woo! Prime Minister Mark Carney discussed the revival of the Keystone XL oil pipeline from Alberta into the United States when he met President Donald Trump at the White House on Tuesday, a government official confirmed. The official, who spoke on condition of anonymity about the closed-door talks in Washington, said Trump was receptive when the pipeline was raised as the leader spoke about possible energy sector cooperation between Canada and the U.S. The official also said the pipeline discussion, which the CBC first reported Wednesday morning, was linked to the federal government's goal of using Canadian materials like steel and aluminum, both sectors the Trump administration has hammered with trade tariffs in major infrastructure projects. Since returning to the White House this year, Trump has called for Keystone XL to be revived after years of delay and roadblocks. The premiers of Alberta and Saskatchewan have also voiced support for the idea, even as the company that owns the existing Keystone pipeline system, Calgary-based South Bow, told the Canadian press it had moved on from the project. But at a conference in Toronto on Wednesday, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said she was pleased to hear Carney and Trump had discussed Keystone XL, especially in the context of using Canadian materials in a project that would include lengths of pipeline in both countries. Give and take. These are the type of deals that are likely to be coming across the desk. Is Carney's hands going to be forced to actually dive in and build some pipelines? Build some pipelines to the U.S., get a deal done. And this also impacts, as you're seeing here, other industries. All right, we're going to be using Canadian steel. And maybe the deal is that we use Canadian steel to build the pipelines to get it down to the United States. I'm sure part of that is like, we'll fund this, you fund that, or, there's just going to be a lot of nuanced and a lot of complex conversations around how these trade deals are going to be structured. And this is exactly what Donald Trump was getting at in his meeting yesterday. He's not interested in just, we'll just tariff this and just he's interested in getting a significant, thoughtful deal out on the desk. And that's what this is pointing to. So what does this mean for Canada? Well, first off, Donald Trump is now doing what we thought he was trying to do during Canada's election when he was essentially interfering with it, is he wanted Mark Carney. Partially because Mark Carney's in his world. They've done real estate deals together indirectly. They've traveled the same circles. He's familiar with him. And that's the thing, is Trump is familiar with Carney. Knows that he's a green zealot, but also knows that Trump holds the big hammer. And even though he's a green zealot, he'll make him do whatever he so pleases. So Trump wants that oil from Alberta. Let's get a pipeline built, Mr. Carney, which is huge for Alberta. And it also kind of eases, not too much, but eases the tension just a little bit on the situation going on between Alberta and BC currently of trying to get a pipeline out to the coast. But this is good news. And obviously I'm recording this before today's question period, so we'll see what happens in question period today around all this situation. But this was good news. However, knowing Mark Carney's perspective and his beliefs, I know a pipeline is completely and utterly against his principles But it is fascinating to watch Donald Trump kind of force him into a corner on this one. If this is true, this is likely going to happen. That's what that tells me. Because now when it comes to trying to stabilize the West, stabilize NATO, get ready for whatever China's trying to do, moves are starting to need to be made. If you remember, last year, Taiwan says they're eyeing Canadian natural gas to supply its growing energy needs. They're looking to start moving away from nuclear, coal, and start to use LNG. And they are really focused on trying to get Canada's LNG down to Taiwan. And so the Kitimat LNG terminal was huge for us in trying to get that going. And we should be doubling production if you really want to supply Japan, Taiwan, hopefully eventually China with LNG. That's why these LNG projects are so vital and so important, because countries are coming calling. Again, this was last year. The Deputy Minister of Economic Affairs said he said Taiwan is open to investing in Canadian LNG projects if the business models make sense and it is required. That was a year ago. Well, today we have Juno News, who had their own meeting saying Taiwan asks Canada to export oil, calls it a national security issue. It is escalating now because China's increased aggression and wanting to take over Taiwan. Well, Taiwan's like, we got to secure our energy here, and we have to make sure we secure it in such a way that we don't travel in Chinese waters where our energy can be seized on these ships. We need help from Canada. Taiwan, the call is going out to Canada even more. Taiwan's foreign minister has called on Canada to export petroleum and liquefied natural gas to the island democracy, calling it a matter of national security. The plea from the Democratic nation comes just days after the provincial government of British Columbia renewed their efforts to prevent additional energy exports by blocking a new pipeline to Canada's northern Pacific coast. Speaking with Juno News, Dr. Ching Lin said Taiwan places great emphasis on Canada's role as a democratic ally and potential energy partner. He described Canada as a Pacific nation whose resources could play a vital part in strengthening democratic resilience in the face of growing Chinese aggression. This comes back to foreign policy. Not only is this good from an economic perspective for Canada to export to these countries on the Pacific coast and the Pacific waters, but we're also shoring up allies in the face of growing global conflicts. I'm sure we want to keep making as many friends as possible and start taking away as many friends away from China as humanly possible as well. So how about David Eby get out of the way and realize that you need to stop screwing around, because there is so much more than your pocketbook that's at stake here. I know you love China. I know you worship at the altar of Xi Jinping, but it's time to get out of the way, because not only does our economy depend on it, but foreign policy in the face of potential World War III threats is also at stake here. So I know I talked a little bit, I was a little droning on this one today, but there's so much at play right now, just centered around this Carney-Trump meeting. Trump wants energy. Taiwan wants energy. Other clients want energy. It's time to start resupplying them and finding ways to maximize our exports to also take care of ourselves, but also take care of our allies in the world. The time is here. And right now we're seeing Donald Trump likely is going to be strong-arming Carney into doing it. You want levity on the steel industry? Well, it's going to come with you building a pipeline to America. That's how you're going to ease the pressure on your steel industry. You want to play ball, Mark Carney? Let's get after it. I want to finish off with this, though, because it's fun. I remember I said yesterday, it's like, how was that meeting yesterday going to play with the liberal base? Very curious. I knew there's some people that were just, the diehard lefties, right? They'll find a way to like, oh, this was so good. They won't see the hypocrisy at all in what they're thinking, what they're seeing. They'll just find a way to defend their guy, their side. That's just how this works. And that's what we saw a lot of on social media, which I just thought was fun. So let's get into a little bit, because it's a good time. So Dale Thompson says, listen up, stupids. If you're pissy or deranged to think Mark Carney can rationally deal with possibly one of the most sociopathic and psychologically demented humans to ever live, you're living in a fantasy world. Carney's playing the long game. Trump will taco yet again. Whatever it takes, all the gymnastics. They keep putting Donald Trump on the same stage as Hitler these days. There it is. David Brown says, this is our version of the bless your heart. way Mark Carney was sucking up to Trump was us just playing the long game here, being smart, which, don't get me wrong, is true. However, these people weren't championing this at all. They're championing elbows up and getting aggressive just a handful of months ago. But now it's all about diplomacy. Now things have changed and their side's tone has changed. Well, now they've changed because, well, they don't actually have any principle. Roddy says Donald Trump is scared of Mark Carney. Watch the body language, the responses. Even Trump knows that he's severely outmatched, so he resorts to some levity to ease the stress. Carney plays along like a musician playing a fiddle. These people are wild. This one. I regret to inform you that Canadians are famous for their passive aggression. This is why half the time people confuse it with being polite. All right, you keep going here. Dean Blundell says Mark Carney dog walked Trump again today. Classic Carney, side greasing, tariff chest thumping, and Law and Order theater. Then a punchline that told on itself. Full breakdown below. Okay, dog walked them. Not our favorite here. Laura Babcock, Miss Canada herself, huh? He's a world-class leader. He's a man who knows what he wants. I'm not surprised he won substantially, and he's probably more popular now. He's a good man. He does a great job, but he's a tough negotiator. Her quoting Donald Trump talking about Carney. And Laura said, I think I just heard Pierre Poilievre and CPC hearts break. Oh, okay. Those are just some of the things we saw on social media. People, the left kind of pretzeling themselves and now changing their tune now that things are looking a little different on the world stage. Yet their man continues to write books like Values and creates green alliances that are all falling apart around him. Now Donald Trump's forcing him to start building conventional energy, and man, it is fascinating to watch. But anyways, enjoy your day. Have yourselves a good one. I'm out.